South Florida. It's home to crystal clear beaches, world-famous nightlife, and world-class dining. A place where many people come to escape, and for some, sunny weather and permanent vacation vibes. Well, there's nothing like a global pandemic to put an end to the party. When Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order on April 1st shutting down all non-essential businesses, our world stopped. But that didn't stop some. During this timeout, we also took time out to assemble a list of the people we find the most fascinating this year. So as we prepare to close the door on 2020, let's take a look back on a few incredible South Floridians, some who made the news across the nation, and some who simply make us proud. They have each found a way to leave an eternal footprint in the fabric of our beloved South Florida and beyond. I'm Kavita Channe, and this is our 7 most fascinating people of South Florida. George Floyd's death sparked a reckoning in America that is shedding a light on systematic racism plaguing many aspects of our society, including in education. Now, our next guest, Gregory Haile, has dedicated his life to higher education. He's a first-generation college graduate who went on to earn a law degree from Columbia University and now serves as a president of Broward College, overseeing 63,000 students and 5,000 employees. President Haile delivered a poignant speech in June denouncing hate to his 74% minority student body as violence erupted in the streets across the U.S. over Floyd's death. Now, Haile spoke of his respect for law enforcement and a deep appreciation for his best friend, an NYPD officer, while also detailing how he has been victimized by police in the past himself and makes sure to hug his family close when he leaves home in case he never sees them again. Let's take it from the top. You grew up in Queens in the mid-'80s. So describe your living situation and what you saw as a child.
South Jamaica, Queens is not a place that I would suggest you'd want to grow up, unfortunately, particularly during that time, which was at the height of the crack epidemic. I've experienced a lot of things as a child that I would never wish upon my beautiful daughters who are 9 and 5 years old. But at the same time, I don't want to lose sight of those experiences.
Your mom, a postal worker for many years, she did have to lie, to get you to a better school and a better district. So how has that shaped your view of education?
I remember as a child seeing a vial on the ground, and you would see those in puddles, and those are things that you would just see. And so I would walk through the projects, and then I would get on the bus, and I'd get on that bus for 45 minutes, another 10 or so minutes walking there, and all of a sudden you're in a completely different environment. And you're recognizing that the children talk differently, or they wear different clothes, and they have very different backgrounds than you do. I will tell you though, when you're coming back, you feel the difference, right? Because you know it's not going to be the same as where you were. And so in one day, you're getting to see what is great about our public school system, about certain communities, yet a few hours later, you're recognizing very quickly how bad it can be, and how even your demeanor has to change. And the consciousness about what's going on around you is heightened depending on the community that you're in. Those are things that I had to learn.
Describe your mom.
So my mom is amazing. She, as you mentioned, she worked at the post office for over 30 years. She never missed a day of work. She went whenever she could. She took overtime whenever she could. And I always recognized how hard of a worker she was. And she would get these plaques that she would bring home for never missing a day of work. And so her work ethic was incredible. And it was a very challenging community, but you would never know by way of her poise. She was always the kindest person. She would be challenged. And when those situations occurred, she would reveal that you should never mistake kindness for weakness.
Well, let's fast forward to college. So now you've graduated top 15% of your class, and you go to Arizona State University, which is pretty far from New York, and you went sight unseen.
The truth is, I didn't know that you were supposed to visit colleges before you actually attended, let alone a college that was 2,500 miles away from my home. Talk to you about being the first in my family to go to college and graduate from college. Very basic principles of being a good student. I didn't know how to study, right? People take that for granted. I remember reading an article and it said, what you take in 1 hour before you go to bed, you're likely to retain. And because I was so new to the idea of trying to be a great student, I took that information and I said, okay, I know what I'll do. I will read for an hour before I go to bed at night. And then I'll set my clock so that I can go to sleep and wake up an hour later. And so I would go to sleep, wake up an hour later, and then read for an hour, and then sleep for an hour, and read for an hour, and sleep for an hour, and I would do so on and so forth. And I would do that for an entire semester. My first semester, I did horrible without that technique. The next semester, I actually did pretty well. Now, for any students watching, or future students, I do not recommend it at all.
Everybody has a favorite teacher in their life. And you met a professor that changed the way that you view your own capabilities. What happened?
I remember I had a professor named James Jarrett at Arizona State University. I'll never forget when I had done a paper for him, and after class, he gave me my paper and he pulled me aside and he said, I want to tell you that I think you're the best student that I've ever had. And when he said that to me, it validated my ability to succeed in that environment and any environment thereafter.
Well, you did go on to get a law degree from prestigious Columbia University, practice corporate litigation, and then you moved into higher education. How diverse is Broward College?
As diverse as it could be. We have about 63,000 students. 37% of our students are Hispanic, about 30% of our students are Black. We have 150 countries of origin represented among our student body. We have 50 languages spoken among our student body. We have economic diversity. We have students from every corner of the earth who are here, who've decided this is the place that they want to be to make a difference.
You gave a poignant speech publicly denouncing the death of George Floyd, but you also spoke about your best friend in New York, who is a New York City police officer. Why was it important for you to do that?
One of the things that I shared was that my very best friend, one who I went to high school with, of more than 25 years, is a law enforcement officer in New York City. And I love him like a brother. And I cherish the work he does. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I cherish the work of our law enforcement officers. And I think about the times that I was growing up and that I needed them and they were there for me. I think about our own Public Safety Institute that trains law enforcement officers in Broward County and the leaders that come through that institute. And I cherish their existence. And I also know what is true in the world, and that there are occasions like the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the so many names that exist that have been subject of undue harm that should have never happened. Those two things can be true. I can love law enforcement and recognize that there are some challenges.
You did have a difficult conversation after a difficult year with your youngest daughter, and you had mentioned that she had said, or she had asked you, if Black people are still slaves. So what was going through your head, and how did you respond?
You know, my daughters are wonderfully brilliant. One of their favorite American heroes is Harriet Tubman. What was going through my head, she was taking what she had learned about Harriet Tubman, taking what she was learning about the George Floyd experience, and having a hard time seeing the difference. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't tell you that that was painful to hear her attempt to reconcile her understanding of history and what was happening at that moment.
What do you think your biggest accomplishment will be as a president of Broward College?
There should be no community that defines its opportunity to pursue a quality education by the wealth that a family has, by the income that a family has, by the zip code that a community or that an individual lives in. Those are the challenges relating to the inequality of opportunity that, frankly, we exist to defy, that we exist to overcome. We don't get to walk away from those challenges. We embrace them. This college has embraced them, and by that work, we've been able to engage those communities like we never have in the history of this institution.